graphics, just graphical power. And like I said, really standouts in terms of looking like real human beings. King Shark, it's a little bit tough because he's a shark, and Deadshot wears a helmet a lot of the time. So what are you going to do? Another pro, the traversal is fun. It's a bit janky depending on what character you use. In the beginning of the game, before you pick a character to start the actual campaign with, they have you play as all 4 characters so you can kind of get a feel for them. I started my main campaign as Captain Boomerang just because I think the Flash is cool and I wanted to have Flash powers, which is what Captain Boomerang has. But recently I switched to Deadshot because I had heard that he was the most fun character to play as. And that is correct. Deadshot is by far the most fun character to play as. He's got a jetpack, which is way cooler than anything else that any other character has. King Shark just kind of jumps. He's like the Hulk, sort of. Harley Quinn has a grapple hook, which they try to emulate the grapple hook. If you've played it in the Arkham games, the grapple hook tether and then overshoot and diving, and there's no gliding. It's just the grapple hook. She kind of swings like Spider-Man. But I really think they botched it. It does not feel as good as it did in those Arkham games, which is a shame because you'd think that they would just be able to translate that 1-to-1 and have it work. But the biggest, well, actually, I'll save that for the cons part. I'm still in the pros part, believe it or not. The Deadshot. Deadshot's a lot of fun. It's for Captain Boomerang, I stopped playing as him because it's a very cool concept. He essentially has Speed Force gauntlets that lets him teleport. But it's tough to make that fun in gameplay when you're just sitting there waiting for your boomerang to get somewhere so you can teleport to it. You're just watching it fly. It's the same thing that happened in Gotham Knights, if anybody ever played that. Tim Drake in that game, Robin, he also teleported, and you essentially were just sitting there waiting to select a point to teleport to, which is not fun inherently, I don't think. It defeats the point of traversal when you're just teleporting, zipping from location to location. Like I said, Deadshot has a jetpack, so you can fly in any direction. Then you can also, there's like an afterburner thing you can do where you can boost. Then if you get too close to overheating, you can hit another button and he kind of does like a little jump, which gives you another bar of jetpack, which then, you can continue flying. So it's kind of a fun dance controlling your overheating with your boost, with your which way you want to go before you get to the next rooftop before you overheat. And I did find that pretty enjoyable. But now on to the cons. The cons are pretty much everything else. The gunplay is pretty boring, with all the characters feeling very similar. I mean, they even can overlap in their guns, right? Deadshot can use a revolver. Harley Quinn can use a revolver. There's revolvers, SMGs, assault rifles, snipers, and shotguns. And then only King Shark can use heavy LMGs like a minigun. For the most part, a lot of these guns overlap between the different characters. So everybody kind of ends up feeling the same. Everyone just shoots guns, and that's it. It's surprising, especially when you've got these distinct characters. Why would you not make them feel distinct? I mean, they all have their own travel methods, their own traversal methods, but when it comes down to the actual gunplay, you're just shooting people. I found that Deadshot, again, is a lot of fun because he can hover in midair with his jetpack to shoot, so that's a little bit different than a Captain Boomerang, who you can zip around to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, you have a shotgun. So you're zipping in, blasting with a shotgun, zipping away. It sounds kind of fun when I describe it like that, but it's really not. At the end of the day, you're just shooting everything in the head. There are also a lot of weird aspects to the gunplay. There's this thing called counter shots, where if something is about to shoot you or just shot you, you can do a counter shot, which sometimes breaks its shield, so then you can damage it. There's a shield recharge mechanic where if you shoot enemies in the legs, you can then do a melee attack on them and recharge your shield, and that's the only way to get shield back. It's really strange. It was like they were confined to this gun mechanic, the fact that everybody has to shoot guns, and then they wanted to make it feel unique and kind of do their own thing within the world of it being a third-person shooter. It ends up just being really complicated because you end up getting mission after mission where the gimmick of the mission is, well, this enemy will only take damage if you countershot him, which just means you're sitting there waiting, doing no damage to this enemy until your countershot recharges. Then you shoot him with that, then you can do damage. It just artificially extends the gameplay. So that's not fun. The biggest issue, well, one of the biggest issues I've encountered is in gameplay. The gameplay is like ridiculously visually noisy. I sent a clip to Joe the other day of all the things popping up on screen, and you can read anybody's review or look at anybody's review or gameplay, and you'll see it right away. The amount of things that pop up on screen, but from damage numbers to health to objective markers to just visual effects, it is overwhelming. And, you know, I play a lot of video games. I've been playing games my whole life. It takes a lot for me to become visually overwhelmed. And this game did it pretty much right away. Like to the point where I had no idea what was happening sometimes because I'm in a group of enemies and I'm meleeing and hitting them up in the air and blowing up and shooting and flying. And it was just, it's like a joke, right? It feels like it's a meme of how much there is on screen. I talked about last week the TikTok thing of having so many visual stimuli, and this is like that game. This is the game if you want to be visually stimulated to the point of like going into a coma. There are so many things on screen that you can't even tell what's happening. And from what I can tell, there is a disable HUD button, but I don't know how much that would help because I don't think you can go in and disable individual visual elements like I would expect. You're kind of just stuck with it. And it is very, very overwhelming. The writing is kind of cringe. It's a little bit closer to David Ayer's Suicide Squad than James Gunn's Suicide Squad, if you catch my drift. The location, it's set in Metropolis, which should be amazing, especially from the people who made Gotham in those Arkham games so memorable. Unfortunately, you spend an insane amount of time on rooftops. They even say right in the beginning of the game, it's too dangerous to go in the street. Don't go in the street. Now, there's really not a gameplay reason for that. I mean, sometimes there's tanks on the ground, but nothing is hard to kill in this game. Everything you can just like demolish. You're a god, effectively. You spend so much time on, like, I would say you spend 95% of your time in this game on rooftops. And so you don't really see Metropolis at the ground level. Everything you do, you're just flying from rooftop to rooftop to rooftop. Maybe sometimes it's a higher building, or maybe sometimes it's a lower building. It reminds me of DC Universe Online, which is a deep cut. I don't know if anyone still plays that game, but I remember in that game running around, I think it was Metropolis, whatever the starting area is in that game when you're a good guy. And it's just like this barren, like empty city, and you're just running straight up a building waiting to get to the top of it. It reminded me a lot of that. So you don't really get a feel for the city like you would in Batman, in the Batman games, other than just looking down on it from a rooftop. And there's not enough visual distinction from the different districts, especially in Arkham Knight. They did a great job with that, making each district feel unique. In this version of Metropolis, they really don't do that, which is a shame because I think Metropolis is a great location that we haven't really seen fully fleshed out in a lot of games, especially with this kind of budget. But anyway, I do plan to finish the main story. It does interest me, sort of. I'm a fan of these characters. You know, I'm a comic book fan. I'm a DC fan. So it is fun to see this scenario play out, even if the gameplay is not fun. I do want to see the Justice League. They do a good job showing how good the Justice League are, like to the point of parody before they all get turned into like demons. So I'm sure they're going to go, you know, a million degrees in the other direction once we see these characters in their evil version. We get Kevin Conroy's Batman, which is great, even though Batman is obviously evil in this. He's killing people, but he's like the big brother in the game, which I think is kind of fun. He's the one running things on the ground, and you get Kevin Conroy hamming it up as an evil Batman. I know people were disappointed that this is one of his last performances, and this is how they're showing the character. I really don't have a problem with it. I think it's fun. You can tell he's having fun with it too. I think, like I said, he's hamming it up, being this evil, like, dictator Batman. I think it's fun. What else do we have here for it? I just wanted to say, and this is really just for me, the game is worse than the Avengers game, which is surprising, right? I'm a diehard fan of that Avengers game. I will go to bat for it. At least in the Avengers game, each character felt unique and had unique abilities. In this game, if you didn't have the character models, right, like if you didn't know you were playing as King Shark or didn't know you were playing as Harley Quinn, the shooting mechanic, you would feel, everybody feels the same for the most part, right? There are very little differences from character to character, which is ridiculous considering it is a multiplayer game. Or, well, it's an always online game that has multiplayer in it. And you can have theoretically a squad of 4 where everybody is playing as their own character, their own unique DC character. When most of the time it just feels like 4 goons with guns just shooting people. But yes, the moral of the story here is sometimes reviews are correct and you should trust them, because this game lived up to every review that I ever read in terms of it being very middle of the road, in terms of it being boring, in terms of the gunplay. Yeah, all that was correct. But those are my thoughts on Suicide Squad and Fallout 76. Let me know what you think. I'm curious if any of you are getting back into Fallout 76 with the show, or if you tried Suicide Squad at launch and didn't like it, or you did like it. Maybe you're still playing it, because there is a battle pass, by the way. Maybe you're grinding the battle pass to get all your Joker skins and stuff. I don't know. But anyway, that's going to wrap up episode 8 of No Credits Rolled. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, you can always email questions or comments to nocreditsrolled@gmail.com. We'll always be happy to hear from you. I plugged it at the beginning of the show, but you can always call in. Leave us a voicemail at 856-209-0713. That's 856-209-0713, and we might just play it on the air. Make sure to subscribe to No Credits Rolled on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, leave a review if you can. All that helps us out quite a bit. If you're feeling generous, we do have a Patreon. You can subscribe there. And you can recommend what I should be playing, what I should be talking about. I would love to hear from you as well. But that's going to do it for today's episode of No Credits Rolled. I'll see you next time.
No Credits Rolled.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of No Credits Rolled. My name is Sam Whalen, your host. Today, we're going to recap some of my personal highlights from Summer Games Fest and the other conferences. Of course, if you're in the gamer world, as we like to call it, us gamers, you probably have heard of some of the news from some of these conferences. We had some big announcements, some small announcements, but this is my favorite time of year when it comes to gaming news. I love watching these conferences. I love seeing people react to them. I like the big announcements, but then also some surprise indie games. It's a great time of year. It's like Christmas, but, for game announcements. But anyway, before we get started, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your audio, we will be there for you. We're on TikTok and YouTube. We're doing video versions for the show now. So just search No Credits Rolled and you will find us there. Check us out. I spent some time on the video version for the show, and I'm pretty proud of those when they do come out. It's nice to have a visual companion when I talk about a lot of these games. But yeah, all right, let's get into the show. Of course, the first thing I want to cover here is SGF Live, the big kickoff event for this wonderful season, hosted by our Lord and Savior, Jeff Keighley. There were some fun reveals here. A lot of people were saying this was a disappointing conference, but I think the problem is when you go into SGF and you go into a Jeff Keighley hosted event, you want the big reveals. You want the crazy thing you didn't see coming. And I think it's just how things go where we get our hopes up. And, even Jeff came out before the show and he was like, he always tries to meet our expectations. And, this time I think he said he was in a Q&A and he gave the show an 8 out of 10, which, he's not going to say anything lower than an 8 because then people aren't going to watch. I think an 8 out of a 10 is a good answer. But for a viewer and someone who is a little more critical, that kind of translates to a 6 out of 10, in my opinion. So I have been pulling from different recap websites from different sources, and for this one, for SGF Live, we're going to be pulling from Sam Loveridge and the team over at Games Radar. So the first big announcement, they kicked the show off with it, was a LEGO Horizon Adventure, which is a LEGO version of the Horizon games on PlayStation, puts Aloy in a wonderful co-op world later this year across PC, PS5, and Nintendo Switch. And that last part we're going to come back to, but having that announced to Switch is kind of crazy. I'm actually very interested in this game. It looks pretty cool. I like the Horizon games, very passively. I've never completed one. They're high quality games, of course. They're great. The team at Guerrilla knows what they're doing, and they've really figured it out, especially with the second game. I've praised in the second game, Forbidden West, the facial animations. I think they're the best I've ever seen. And, I've enjoyed my time with those games, but they've never really hooked me in the way that I really wanted them to. I don't know if it's the combat or the mechanics of the world or the characters I'm not very interested in. I don't know. It's just never been one of my favorite franchises, even though on paper it should be, right? Giant robot dinosaurs, check. Who doesn't love those? Open world exploration, always a fan of that. Really cool traversal mechanics, which they amped up in the second game. I don't know. Part of it is I'm not a big fan of the weapons. I don't like using the bow and arrow in most games. I find it to be really boring. My friend Joe's listening. He's a big bow and arrow guy. To each their own, but I prefer a gun. And there are other weapons in Horizon. You've got the explosion slingshot and the tripwire, and the idea is you've got all these tools in your arsenal because you're like kind of a hunter, and you're supposed to use all these tools to your disposal to take down these behemoths. But it's never really clicked for me in the way that I wanted. Now this Lego game, the trailer was really great. First off, it looks stunning. It looks like they're kind of taking from the Lego movies that kind of Lego animation, and I think that's a great call. I think that allows people to sort of have an entryway into this game, because if they've seen those movies, they know what Legos talking and running around and doing actions are going to look like. It looks a little bit different than those classic Lego games we're all familiar with. Now, the biggest thing for me with this game is it looks like they're really doing that Lego humor, but in the Horizon world. And they kept Ashley Birch as Aloy, but it looks like they're letting her have more fun and sort of taking sort of not limiting her performance, because that's a big problem a lot of people have with Horizon is the character of Aloy and how I don't want to not muted, but sort of just held back. She is. She doesn't really. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the character. She's not that interesting to me. I know people have different opinions on it, but that's one of the things that never really grabbed me about those games was that character. And it looks like if they're going to take it in a more Lego humor kind of route, then I really think her performance is going to shine. And I think her comedic timing is always great. So I'm really curious to see what they do with that here. And they showed what are the big dinosaurs? The T-Rexes, I think, are Thunderjaws, maybe. They showed one of those. And, that looked pretty cool. They showed the boss fight with that. And the fact that it's co-op, always a plus. I don't know if it'll be online co-op, because Lego games are real weird about that. Some games have it, some games don't. I hope it's online, because I would like to not, I'm a big proponent of couch co-op, but I think you should have both if you can have online co-op and couch co-op. When the Lego Star Wars remastered games came out, or what was it, the Skywalker collection, something, whatever they called it. Joe and I were super excited for that. And we did play that couch co-op when it initially came out. But I still have yet to finish that game. And I think if there was an online option, I would be more incentivized to do it, because you can always play with someone that's not necessarily right next to you, but, wherever they may be. What else do I have for this game? Oh, yeah, the last thing here, it's on Switch. It's coming to Switch. So we've got a PlayStation game coming to a Nintendo console, or a PlayStation Studio game coming to a Nintendo console, which is pretty crazy. Is that going to open the door for more things coming to Switch in the future? Possibly. I'd like to see this crossover. Console exclusives I think they're becoming a thing of the past to a certain extent. We'll get to the Xbox conference later, and that kind of disproves what I just said, but it's nice to see more people being able to play more games. I think that's a positive across the board. Oh, I also want to preface, I should have said this in the top of the show. For all these conferences I'm going to be covering, I'm only talking about the stuff that I care about. Kind of selfish of me, but hey, I'm not going to talk about something I know nothing about or have no interest in. So always go check out these conferences yourself if you are interested in the full shows. But for me, this show is going to be sort of a best of highlight reel. So speaking of that, the next game we have up is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. This came out of nowhere, and the second they started playing that cool rock version of the Power Rangers theme song, which is by a band that I like. I'm going to look it up. Hang on. Okay, so they're called the Punk Rock Factory. They have various albums that are covers of all kinds of things. I mean, they got really popular when they did covers of Disney songs like Let It Go and stuff. But they did an album on old 80s shows. They did some games, Disney stuff. They're great. I'm a particular fan of their Power Rangers song, which was used in this trailer. It goes very hard. And I'm glad that they used it for this trailer, because it was perfect. And This game was one of my biggest hype reveals, and like I said, it came out of nowhere. So it's coming from Digital Eclipse, who did a lot of these retro remakes. They did the TMNT Cowabunga collection, a bunch of other stuff. And it looks like Hasbro is getting in on the video game universe with this sort of Hasbro Rewind branding. It also includes a G.I. Joe game that's coming out that was shown at a different conference, but looks very similar to this Power Rangers game. They're both sort of going for that side-scrolling beat 'em up, which I played the TMNT Shredder's Revenge game, and I loved that game. And it looks like they're going for that again with a Power Rangers game. Perfect. It's a perfect idea in my opinion. I'd love, like I said, love that TMNT game. Give me more of that. And in a Power Rangers setting, yes, please. Not to mention, it looks like they've added other stuff in that trailer. Like there's the Megazord fights where it almost looked first person, I think. There's a motorcycle chase part that looks like an old arcade game. It looks like they've added a lot of stuff more than just being a beat 'em up. So I'm super excited for this to come out. And, you know, the Power Rangers are cool. I was a big Power Rangers SPD fan when I was a kid. So, you know, for what that's worth, maybe I can include the hashtag Power Rangers in this episode now. I think this is going to be the original crew, though, which everybody loves. So I'm really excited for this one, and I hope it's coming to console. I neglected to check if it was, but fingers crossed. I'm sure it will. And then, yeah, that G.I. Joe game also looks great. Sort of the same thing, but with G.I. Joe. And G.I. Joe is also cool. All right, I'll admit it. Might as well do a Transformers game at this point, right? I mean, it's Hasbro. They own this stuff. Give me what else do they, like Clue? Do they own Clue? They own a lot of board games. Anyway, yeah. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. That's tough to say. It will be coming out soon. Super stoked for that one. All right, so this was my third and final hype reveal for this show. So it's 4 years after releasing on PC, Valorant is coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X. And there's a beta coming probably right around the time this episode's going to drop. So you can sign up for that and try to get codes. But yeah, I've been wanting Valorant on PC for a very long time. This is a game that I desperately want to get into, but I also refuse to play on PC. I have it installed on my gaming computer, but I very rarely play it just because something about the setup of playing on a laptop or a PC, I really don't like it. I like the convenience of having a console that I can turn on my big nice TV and play it there. So I'm super excited that Valorant is now coming to console. I'm really curious how it's going to play. My friends and I have been playing a ton of Siege lately, Rainbow Six Siege, and I hope that has prepped us for Valorant. I know it's a different kind of game, but I'm really looking forward to trying this one. And I hope I'm able to get in on the beta. It is a closed beta, so you do need to get codes. But I believe if you are qualified, you get 5 extra codes to give to your friends. So I'm going to be hitting up everyone I can to try to get codes for that. I do have a note here. I complain about this probably every episode. But will we get dominated by PC players if there's crossplay, which there definitely will be? Yeah, probably. But hey, maybe they'll give us some bots. I don't know if Valorant has bots. But, let me have a little bit of fun before the sweaters come in, Again, this is my complaint every episode about stuff, but these people have also had a 4-year head start on us for how to play this game. So I would like a little bit of time to get acclimated before I'm thrown into the deep end. But yeah, very much looking forward to this. I hope it runs well. I hope they can do a nice full release. And, I'm looking forward to what they got on console. So that's Valorant coming to console very soon, at least a beta. All right, so that wraps up SGF Live. Like I said, I think we get our expectations a little bit too high for those shows. And, like I got something out of it. I think you can, if you watch it, you'll get at least 1 or 2 cool announcements out of it. But moving on to the next conference, this was the one that really surprised everyone, including myself, considering how much smack I talk on Xbox. But it's the Xbox conference. So all this coverage in this portion of the show comes from Nicole Carpenter and others at Polygon. Xbox crushed this conference. I mean, that's pretty much the general consensus. People are saying it's their best conference ever. I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with enough of their conferences to say that. I definitely think in their sort of state lately, I think this was a great little, almost like a new setup of dominoes for the things to fall in 2025. So they kicked off the show with Black Ops 6, which we kind of all knew was coming. They also ended the show with a little Black Ops 6 direct, 20-minute segment. So I'm just going to talk about both those things now just because it works easier for the flow of things. But Black Ops 6 looks pretty great, guys. I don't know. I'm very skeptical still because it's, I've been burned by Call of Duty so many times, but it's coming to Games Pass, so I'm definitely going to be playing it. And, there's the new Omni movement, which looks interesting. It kind of looks like Max Payne almost, but in Call of Duty. I'm really curious how that's going to feel on console. Obviously, PC players are going to absolutely activate with that, being able to turn in any direction. Classic prestige systems are back for multiplayer. I did not know that at first, but I'm really glad to see that. That actually makes me get interested in multiplayer because when I was younger, I would do prestiges and all those old Call of Duties. And it was kind of a bummer when they did away with that and you just had like an infinite level cap. I like the idea of resetting, getting that new level, getting rewards for hitting that max level, and then starting from scratch. I like being incentivized to hit that level cap and then restart and not just get stuck on using the best gun in the game for every match just to get the most kills. I find it to be very boring, and that's kind of where the multiplayer will lose me. But I like the cycle of, starting from scratch again and leveling everything up. I think I talked about this last week, but I hope this makes a big splash, and I hope this Call of Duty game really hits for people and gets me personally back into the COD campaigns and multiplayer, because I really have fallen off since that original Modern Warfare, the second, technically, Modern Warfare remake in 2019. Nothing's really hit like that for me since then. And, I'm thinking about going back to Cold War because I really don't remember much of that game, but I know it was pretty well praised. I might go back to that and play the campaign in that just to kind of get a refresher because a lot of those characters are returning, it seems. At least the guy that looks like Robert Redford, I think his name's Adler. He was in the trailer, so it looks like it's the same continuity. So I might go back and check that out and kind of just get a refresher for the gameplay feel and for the story there. But yeah, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, I really think they crushed this presentation with that aspect of it. People knew this was coming for this presentation, and I really think they met those expectations and showed it off really well. So with this Xbox conference, it's kind of like hype announcement after hype announcement. Next up, we have Doom the Dark Ages. Oh man, this leaked beforehand, so it was kind of spoiled. But it's one thing to read it in a leak, but it's another thing to see it, right? This was another hype reveal. First off, if you put Doom music behind anything, it's going to be hype. I love the soundtracks in Doom. They're absolutely iconic. It's also called The Dark Ages, which is sick. Love that title. So Doomslayer has a shield now and a cape because it's like medieval kind of or whatever. I don't even know where in time it's set, but I know it's during when the Doomslayer was a knight or something. I don't know. It looks great. I like that they're innovating on the gameplay. They did it with the second game, adding more platforming stuff, and it looks like they're going to keep innovating with this third game. There were mechs, big, I already mentioned Mechazord, but let's say that cool word again on the show. Doom guy has a mech suit that's a giant robot. I have no idea how that's going to work. There's a dragon that he rides in the trailer. It just looks exciting and thrilling. And that's why I like the Doom games. They're just so much fun to play. And the loop of those games of, just not mindless killing, because there is, you have to ration ammo and stuff and switch weapons, but it just never gets old. It really doesn't. And the more of these games they make, the better. I already mentioned the music, but give me more of that music too. There's so much to love about these games. If you like FPSs, go play the first two. They're great. I actually picked up the expansions for the second game recently, and I was working my way through them. And you just never get tired of that gameplay. It's just they really nailed it in the first game, and they just continue to innovate on it and make it even better. So super excited for the Dark Ages. Next up, we got State of Decay 3. I'm dying for this game to come out. They teased it last year, I think, and it was just a cinematic. But now we got more cinematic and what looked like gameplay. It looks very graphically impressive, and there's a real atmosphere to it that I'm excited for. I think people sleep on the State of Decay series, but I've always really loved those games, especially 2. They really stepped it up, in my opinion, with 2. It's a great sort of zombie simulator, and the way they do Survivor, there's a roguelite element to it almost, with how you can roll new survivors and the different backgrounds and perks they have. I think it's a ton of fun. It's my perfect zombie game, in my opinion. I think it's the closest to what a Walking Dead game should be, but with, not the Walking Dead characters that we know. So to get a third one and to have it look this good, I'm super, I keep saying I'm super excited, but it's exciting. It's an exciting time, folks. It's an exciting time. I don't know. I don't think we got a release date for this, but a lot of these things in this conference are 2025. So hopefully it's, they don't get pushed back, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of this game. And I hope when it comes out, it can somehow come to PlayStation so I can play it with my friends, because I think we'd have a lot of fun. It's one of those games that I think really shines if you can play it with other people, much like Sea of Thieves, which eventually got ported over, and we're playing that now on PlayStation. I would love to see State of Decay end up on PlayStation somehow, but we'll see what happens. So now we have Dragon Age the Veilguard. I don't have a whole lot for this, but I really liked Dragon Age Inquisition. I never played any other Dragon Age game except for that one. And this trailer they showed at the conference looks like you're kind of putting a team together. That's always fun. We did see gameplay now that people, I guess the embargo is probably lifted, so people are posting their gameplay. And it looks like they're going for more of a action game, less of the tactical RPG stuff we had in Inquisition. That was sort of a blend of the tactical RPG and the action RPG. Looks like they're kind of taking it back to just straight action in this, sort of more like a Mass Effect. The one thing I did see is that you can't control you can't inhabit your squad mates anymore. You just command them, which is a little bit of a bummer. I liked being able to jump around and be different classes depending on which teammates I had with me. But it looks like it's going to work more like Mass Effect, where you're just giving them orders and they're firing off their different abilities. I think it'll still be fun. It just means that I have to, work a little bit harder to like the class that I picked, because that was always the thing in Inquisition where, you roll your guy and you're like, oh, this is kind of boring. I want to use magic for a little bit. So you jump over to your wizard character, or I want to be, an archer, and you jump over to the archer character. It'll suck not having that, but I think it'll still work. And again, the gameplay looks super fun. I like that it's more action-y. I think it's going to work a lot better in the world, because honestly, one of my few complaints with Inquisition was that combat could get a little busy with all the different things going on and having to manage your different party members. I think just having to focus on yourself for the most part will make things a little bit easier and a little bit more streamlined. So we'll have to see whenever that comes out. And of course, this is a big thing for BioWare. BioWare really has to nail this game, I think. And we talked about Starfield before and setting our expectations too high for Bethesda. And it's kind of a similar situation here with BioWare, where it looks like they're returning to what they're good at. And, if we get those great stories with our companions that we like in BioWare games, we get that great RPG mechanics and a great world, I think there's a lot of potential here for BioWare to kind of make a return with Dragon Age the Veilguard. So we'll have to see. But my hopes are high for this. I'm hoping it does well, and I hope that it lives up to the hype that it does have. All right, so next we got some Starfield stuff. I'm still playing Starfield, believe it or not. I cannot believe I am still playing it, but I am. This was mostly an update with a tease for the DLC, which is called Shattered Space. It mostly just felt like a reminder for people that Starfield does in fact exist. It didn't really blow my mind too much, but, I'm curious what the expansion will have. It looks like they're doing sort of a Eldritch Horror Cthulhu kind of thing. What that will actually look like, I'm not sure. They added the mod integration, like the Bethesda Workshop stuff on console, which is cool. I'm sure there's plenty of fixes for things that Bethesda didn't fix. I haven't really explored the mods too much because it turns off your achievements, and I want to try to finish the game and still get some achievements for that. So I haven't really looked into the mods. But, hey, Starfield's not that bad. You should go check it out. Especially if you're really eager for like a new Skyrim game or something, it definitely can scratch a little bit of that itch. Next up, we have a game called South of Midnight. The reveal trailer for this was last year, I believe, but we got a little bit more gameplay this time around, and this game looks super unique. I don't have the studio here, but it reminds me of Kena Bridge of Spirits, if you ever played that game. Very visually impressive, very cool environments, very cool character designs. And I want to know more about the gameplay, because they show you climbing a tower and ringing a bell, but then that was kind of it. And with how unique the world looks, I'm curious if it's going to be sort of an action adventure game or what we're dealing with here. But I like the setting of I don't know if it's Louisiana, but it looks like Louisiana. Like the sort of swamp bayou areas. There's a big fish that's like your friend. That's cool. You have like a Fortnite parachute to fly around. I don't know. The animation on the character looked interesting too. It looked like it's sort of that Spider-Verse thing where the characters are rendered a little bit lower frame rate compared to the rest of the world. So we'll have to see what that ends up looking like. It's cool. It's also good to see new games, new ideas when everything, seems like it's a sequel or a remake of stuff. It's nice to get something fresh and something new. So, I'm looking forward to this one too. And that's why I included it on the list. Speaking of remakes, next we have Perfect Dark, which is a full-on new game. Is it a remake if it's not even close to the original? I don't know. Perfect Dark, those games already existed for a long time ago. And now they're making a new one. And it looks like I never played any of those original games, But it looks like Cyberpunk and spy stuff, which I love. Always give me more of that. And no release date for this either. That's actually a common theme for a lot of these games. No release date. Xbox is kind of just really banking on 2025 to pop off. But yeah, Perfect Dark. If I'm speculative about Perfect Dark, because if you watch the trailer, it shows what looks like gameplay, but like I don't buy that that's how the game is actually going to play. There's like little like takedowns and stuff that I think her name's Joanna Dark, which that's a cool name, that she does that I'm like, there's no way this is going to work like this in gameplay. I don't know. We'll see. It looks like it might be a little indulged for this trailer. I'm curious what the actual game will feel like, because we don't want to get into the Cyberpunk 2077. Is that the name of the game? Yeah. We don't want to repeat a Cyberpunk 2077 where our hopes are to the moon and then we get the game and it's like, oh, it's an RPG. Okay. Like I want to keep my expectations metered, but I love the spy stuff. I love the Cyberpunk stuff. So I want to see more of this game, especially I want to see more gameplay, but it also looks like it's not really close to being released yet. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Then we had more Indiana Jones. This was basically just a super long cutscene, mostly all cinematic. We had a little bit more gameplay, but I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I'm still going to play this when it comes out. I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. I just hope the game isn't terrible, right? I hope it's good. I did find that the sort of tone and the humor in the cutscene and the cinematic was a little weird. I don't know if it necessarily landed. But yeah, I really want to know what this gameplay is going to feel like as well, especially the melee stuff. I talked about that when it was initially shown off at an Xbox, what was it, Developer Direct? It might have been the first episode I ever did of this show. But I want to know more of what that game's going to feel like to play, because, the Wolfenstein games are great. The folks over at Machine Games know what they're doing, and I just want to know how that's going to feel once the controller's in my hands. And I would also like to see a full gameplay demo, too. They're really relying a lot on these cinematics and stuff, and I hope they show more of it before it releases. But, it's Indiana Jones. It's Troy Baker doing the voice, which there's always like one line in in the first trailer they did and in this trailer where he says something. I'm like, that sounds super weird. But like 90% of the time, it sounds great. So Troy Baker's super talented. He's doing his best Harrison Ford. We'll have to see what it's like in the full game. So this was the big One More Thing reveal, Gears of War E-Day, which, man, that's a cool title. It's a prequel. Your Marcus is back. Dom is back. All your favorite Gears of War characters. And they're not old or dead. They're all young and fit, and they're back. So this takes place before Gears 1. I don't know why, and this might have leaked. I have no idea. I was not expecting a prequel game. I mean, they've committed so hard to these new games, 4 and 5, of like the new timeline, and not the new timeline, but the new characters and like the new canon. I was not expecting a prequel, but I think it's a great idea. I don't have anything against 4 and 5. I like those games, but there's just something about those original characters that people really like. And now you can cash in on the nostalgia because it's been so long. So you can bring back those characters that people love. I mean, like Marcus is still in those new games, but not a whole lot of other people are, I don't think. It's been a while since I played them. But like Dom's definitely dead. Spoilers. His death is like one of the most iconic moments in the franchise. So to get all them back, and I'm sure we'll get Cole and all them, hopefully. It'll be a lot of fun to see. I saw an article saying they're going to bring back more of the horror elements. Really wondering what that's going to look like. I remember in the first game there was the section, I don't remember what they were called, but it's like when you can't go into the shadows, you have to stay in the light or else this like big swarm of like bat things eats you. And that was pretty spooky. And the trailer shows a little bit of that. Like it just shows you, it's a cinematic, but it shows you the size of the locust, and it's a like knockdown drag out fight with Marcus. So I wonder if they'll kind of go into that more of like how scary the locust can really be, instead of it just being like a Michael Bay, like balls to the wall, every gun in the world is firing at once kind of thing. But very excited for this one. Very excited to play more Gears. I love Gears of War. I really got in since I dropped in with 2. 3 was like I loved that game. Then I played the remaster of 1, and then I've been into 4 and 5. 5 was really good. But I don't think the Gears games have managed to capture the general public, especially in terms of being an Xbox pillar, an Xbox brand. I don't think they've managed to capture that interest since that original Gears trilogy. Oh, also, what was the other one called? Gears Judgment? The one where you play as Damon Baird? That That was a great game too. I just think they might have flown a little under the radar, even though they're like quadruple A games. And, I think this is the way to do it to get a lot of people back in, is to bring back your OG characters. And maybe Halo should take a note, just saying. Just saying. So the other presentation was the Ubisoft presentation. Their presentation was kind of lame, I'll be honest. There were two things I want to hit on for this, and it was pretty much the only two things that were super relevant in the whole presentation. Very quickly off the top, there was Prince of Persia Lost Crown news, which I didn't include it in the notes, but because I forgot about it. But they announced some DLC for that, some challenge maps for that. I love that game. I'm probably not going to go back to it, but super happy for the people that love that game, that they're going to get more content for it. They teased the Sands of Time remake in 2026, which is super far away. But it looks like they're going with a different art style for that. All they showed was like a candle, but people that want that game are really looking into that candle to try to extract meaning from it. And there was another game called Prince of Persia Rogue or something like that, made by a different team. And I had never heard of that game, but that looks pretty cool. And it looks like a different version of something like a Lost Crown, so I might have to check that out as well. But anyway, the two big things from the Ubisoft presentation. The first one was Star Wars Outlaws. This was crazy, right? My expectations are very low for this game, and they still kind of are, but they're definitely a little bit higher after seeing this trailer. This trailer really sold me on this game. I think if this trailer is accurate and is to be believed, which you always have to take these things with a grain of salt because they are deliberately cinematic, even if it is gameplay, they do have things canned in a certain way to make it look as good as possible. But if this lives up to the hype, I really think this could be my kind of game. It is a Ubisoft game, very clearly. It is open world, it is exploration, and I think that's a great way to take a Star Wars game. We had the Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order games, and Jedi Survivor in particular really tried to get more into that open world thing. They had like different planets, which were their own open worlds, and I think they did a really good job there. But I think specifically the Ubisoft brand of open world would really work for Star Wars. I mean, they showed off ship combat, ship flying, and you can land on the planet, which seemed like a middle finger to Starfield. But I think the way they showed it here is a really good fit. And you're not a Jedi, you're like a smuggler. So I think it's a great way to utilize those mechanics as well. Great Star Wars language in this trailer. I mean, look, Star Wars is a lot of things to a lot of people, but there are a lot of things that translate well no matter what. Like the sound effects, there are a lot of great sound effects in this, and this is deep in the weeds here. But like they showed the lock picking mechanic, and it's like the locks from the movie, and everybody clapped. It's great. I don't know. I like that part. Like I said, the ship combat looks good. The music kicks in, and especially if that music is good throughout the whole game, I think that could really be a standout because you just can't beat that sort of John Williams-esque music in a Star Wars world. I'm waiting for the full release here to see if there are some sort of performance issues or some other glaring problem that brings this game down. But this presentation was really well done, and it raised my hopes for this game that I was very low on prior to this because I didn't expect much from Ubisoft with this, honestly. And they really sort of changed my mind here. So we're going to have to see what happens. I also double dog dare them not to have any lightsabers in this game. I don't know if they'll be able to help themselves because it is Star Wars and Star Wars loves lightsabers. But hey, I would also like Cad Bane. Give me Cad Bane in this game, and it's instantly a 10 out of 10. Cad Bane is cool, and he's the best, so put him in the game. And don't lock it behind a pre-order either. All right, and the other thing in the Ubisoft Forward, I think it was called, the Ubisoft presentation, whatever it was called, was Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is another one that kind of set my expectations for the game. I wasn't really sure what to expect going into it. The trailer was very visually stunning. I think the setting helps a lot with that. And Assassin's Creed settings are always a highlight of these games, and it's one of the things people look forward to, including myself. And I think Japan will be a standout. I think they're really putting in the effort here. The ability to choose between protagonists for missions, which they showed off in that trailer, is very interesting. I wonder what the limits for that will be and how it will impact gameplay. Are you encouraged to replay missions maybe to see different paths you can do? Ghost of Tsushima is hard to not bring up when you talk about this Assassin's Creed game. Ghost of Tsushima is one of my favorite games of all time. And it's for me personally, I'm not going to be able to help myself but compare the two. So I hope Assassin's Creed can sort of shine in its own way and maybe bring things to the table that Ghost didn't do or couldn't do because of what kind of game they were trying to make. And, I'm looking forward to more of this as well. Curious what the game, all these games, right? Curious what they're going to feel like once they're actually in our hands. But we're going to have to wait and see. But this was definitely a good showing for both Assassin's Creed and Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft. And we'll have to see what else comes down the pipeline as we get closer to release for these games. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I've got a quick little review on Destiny 2, The Final Shape. You're listening to No Credits Rolled. All right, and we're back on No Credits Rolled. Just got done covering the latest conferences from over the weekend. Now we're going to talk about Destiny 2, The Final Shape. Now, full disclosure off the top of this review, I've only done a handful of the story missions, so I'm nowhere near an expert on this expansion. I just want to give my quick little thoughts because, this has been a good time, and I probably will come back to it at some point on this show once I do finish it to give a little bit more in-depth thoughts. But this is just a quick little thing off the top here. The big word that comes to mind playing this campaign, or I guess you can call it a campaign, playing these story missions so far, the word that comes to mind is emotional. There really is a weight and a finality to everything you do in this, and I think they're doing a good job of making this the final big thing for Destiny 2. And, it's in every mission, whether that be Cayde coming back, whether it be how you find Zavala and Ikora and all your pals, your band of misfits as you pick them up one by one in this campaign. It's very emotional. I don't know how else to describe it. Now, they do tug on your heartstrings a little bit too much. I think they know what they have, right? This game's been out for like 10 years. And for people like myself that have been there since day one, it's very easy to elicit emotion just because of the time that you've spent in this. So, having that initial cutscene where it's very similar to the beginning of the game where your ghost finds you and brings you back to life, and, those things still hit. And it's very emotional. I don't know how else to describe it. I do want to touch on Lance Reddick here. Unfortunately, he passed away. It's very, very sad, very tragic. And, may he rest in peace. But Zavala is now being voiced by Keith David. And I do want to talk about Keith David's performance. I love Keith David. I am a big fan of his in pretty much every role he's had that I've heard him or seen him in. He's, of course, for me, he'll always be the Arbiter from Halo. So hearing him now in a new Bungie game, a new Bungie shooter, having Keith David yell at me, it's very nostalgic. And honestly, I think he does a great job. He's different from Lance Reddick, but I think he excels in his own way. It also helps that we go back to that word emotional, right? And Zavala's mission that I just completed the other day at the time of recording, Zavala's mission is very emotional to the point of almost being like saccharine. But Keith David does a great job. Obviously he's a pro. He's one of the best, and he really brings something different from Lance Reddick to this role. And of course, obviously, Lance Reddick, very tragic that he passed away. But I'm glad that we're continuing this Zavala character with a different voice. I'm glad they didn't just get rid of the character. I'm glad that we're able to continue the character's story. I think the storytelling so far has been very well done. We're getting more of what the Witness actually is and what they want and what they're doing. Destiny's a tricky beast, and I've been there since day one, but I would still say I'm a pretty casual fan of these games. I've never done any raids. I mostly do the PvP and the strikes or any new story content that comes out. In terms of the lore, I could maybe give you like a 2-paragraph description of the story. Shout out to the YouTube channel My Name is Bife. He's a fantastic lore guy when it comes to all this stuff. Highly recommend you go check out his work. My Name is Bife is great. If you want the lore, he's your best bet because Destiny can be really obtuse when it comes to that stuff. Thank God we don't have Grimoire cards anymore. Those were always fun to read if you went to the website. But yeah, so in terms of the story and the payoff for this 10-year odyssey, I'm sure there's a ton of stuff I'm missing. But despite that, and despite my my lack of knowledge, this is still hitting for me, right? And it really does feel like a finale for this game and for this story and for these characters. And I think, I love interacting with the new ghosts. We get to hear from Zavala's ghost and Cayde's ghost. I'm sure that's probably been done before. I think Osiris's ghost was in at one point. But like having these different ghosts come into the story and sort of speak when their companions aren't there, I think it does a great job, and it's a new perspective on the story. And again, in Zavala's mission, you get a great little moment with Zavala's ghost and him at the end of that mission that is like, wow, that's really super sad, but also very emotional. I like the new area. We're finally seeing inside the Traveler, and it's a very cool area. It's almost like fairy tale-like in some ways, but also very abstract and genuinely creepy and unnerving at sometimes. There's the sort of clash between what the Witness and what the Traveler are doing, and it's sort of constantly reshaping itself, and new areas are popping up or changing or warping. And it's not like the usual Destiny creepy horror stuff where it's like dark and there's like black goop everywhere with the hive. This is like a different kind of uneasiness, I think. There's like weird faces and stuff that will come out of the walls. And like, I really think it's the imagery that's a lot different. And I think that is a neat twist, especially when you're bringing in the Witness, who is this big villain. You want to kind of give them their own atmosphere. And I think that's exactly what they did here. So far, there have been more puzzles worked into the campaign gameplay. I'll be honest, not a big fan of these puzzles. They're annoying because if you mess them up, you have to fight another wave of enemies to then do the puzzle again. So if you're like me and you're an idiot and you mess it up, you just end up fighting these waves of enemies because you're not paying attention or can't figure out the puzzle. I could Google it, right? But I'm not going to do that because not yet. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm going to Google it. I might at some point, but I don't know. It's just the puzzles have really been bogging me down when I just want to get through this story and experience the story. But that's Destiny, right? There's puzzles I know there's puzzles in the raids and stuff, and that's just a mechanic that's in this game. So it's definitely, it's been there for a while. It's just, I think these particular puzzles, there's one in the beginning where you have to like rotate a dial. I swear I spent like 45 minutes trying to figure it out, and it took forever. It's really that puzzle in particular that I'm calling out. But the gameplay is still great. Obviously, the gunplay still feels fantastic. You've got the new abilities where you can mix and match all the different light abilities into one class, and I think that's super cool. The way they're blending that together, I think, is really neat, and to have it be the final thing you're getting in this game, I think it's a great idea, and I think it is a great way to show how far this game has come and how far we've come playing it. Now having a mastery over light and dark, I think thematically it works, and I think also in gameplay it works to just show that this is really, the peak of what you can do, both in the world and in gameplay. So, that's Destiny 2, The Final Shape. Again, I'm very much looking forward to playing more of the story of it. I want to see where it goes. I know the raid's been completed, so good for those people. I'm probably not going to play it, but I might look up a video on it. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this story goes and how it comes to an end. I hope they keep Cayde 6 around, but they're probably not going to do that. So just preemptively rest in peace, Cayde 6 again. Anyway, that's all my thoughts for now on Destiny 2, The Final Shape, and that is actually going to wrap it up for episode 11 of No Credits Rolled. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, you can always email questions and comments to nocreditsrolled@gmail.com. You can call and leave a voicemail at 856-209-0713. That's 856-209-0713. And we might just play it on the air. Make sure to subscribe to No Credits Rolled on Spotify and Apple, just like I said at the top of the show. Anywhere you get your podcast, we will be there for you. And of course, we also have a Patreon if you're feeling generous. But anyway, that's all I got. I'll see you next time on No Credits Rolled. Are you tired of your favorite gaming podcast finishing with a play?
Oh, no!
Well, check out No Credits Rolled, where we play the games but rarely finish them. How's it going, folks? I'm Sam Whalen, your friendly host at No Credits Rolled, the ultimate gaming podcast, where we dish out the latest scoops and reviews on all your beloved video games.
Hey, listen!
Not only that, but we spice things up with some guest interviews and even give you, yes, you, a chance to have your say. Tune in every other week for a fresh dose of No Credits Rolled, available on all major podcast platforms, and hit us up on social media at No Credits Rolled. So why wait? Let's dive into the gaming world together, where finishing games is optional, but the fun is guaranteed. Are you tired of your favorite gaming podcast finishing with a play?
Oh no!
Well, check out No Credits Rolled, where we play the games but rarely finish them. How's it going, folks? I'm Sam Whalen, your friendly host at No Credits Rolled, the ultimate gaming podcast, where we dish out the latest scoops and reviews on all your beloved video games.
Hey, listen.
Not only that, but we spice things up with some guest interviews and even give you, yes, you, a chance to have your say. Tune in every other week for a fresh dose of No Credits Rolled, available on all major podcast platforms, and hit us up on social media at No Credits Rolled. So why wait? Let's dive into the gaming world together, where finishing games is optional, but the fun is guaranteed.
No credits rolled.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of No Credits Rolled. That's right, we've made it to 10 episodes. My name is Sam Whalen, of course, always your host. But yeah, 10 episodes is a big deal. So I just want to thank everybody for listening. If you've listened, downloaded, shared the show, if you've been there since episode 1, when I used to stutter and say slightly more than I do now, I really appreciate it. 10 episodes is a big deal for me. When I started this show, I wasn't really sure how long I was going to go with it, how much I was going to do, and, before you know it, we're at episode 10, so thanks. But before we get started, of course, I have to do the usual plugs. We are on TikTok and YouTube at No Credits Rolled, so go check us out there. Trying to get that TikTok following going, just because it's fun to go viral there if we can. And, of course, you can also continue to subscribe and tell everyone you know to subscribe on every podcast service, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. No Credits Rolled will be there for you. 10 episodes down, hopefully 10 billion more to go. Anyway, thanks again for episode 10, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's start the show.
Now get out there and make someone smile.
All right, so last week we did a little bit more review-centric show, and this week we're going back to the news just because there were two things that I really cannot avoid talking about, and that really interests me, and I think might interest you too. First story we got is, of course, you've probably heard that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is reportedly set to launch straight into Xbox Games Pass. This, of course, was rumored for a while that now with the Xbox Blizzard Activision sort of merger that, hey, is COD going to come to Games Pass? Is Xbox going to play that card? And it looks like they finally are. So this is from Wesley Yin-Poole over at IGN, quote, Microsoft will soon announce its intention to release this year's mainline Call of Duty game straight into Games Pass, according to a new report. The Wall Street Journal reports that Microsoft will announce the plans during its Xbox showcase event in June, which I think that is rumored for the next 2 weeks, maybe? June 9th, I feel like I heard. This is from the Wall Street Journal article. They said, quote, Microsoft plans a major shakeup of its video game sales strategy by releasing the coming installment of Call of Duty to its subscription service instead of the long-time lucrative approach of only selling it a la carte. Microsoft declined to comment when contacted by the publication, so they're probably saving this for their big showcase. So yeah, this is Xbox finally playing their big card, I think. What is this going to look like? What is this going to look like for Xbox? What is this going to look like for Call of Duty as a series? We're going to try to break a little bit of that down here on the show today. So the first thing I want to look at is how will this impact Call of Duty sales? 2023 was the first time in a long time that Call of Duty wasn't the best-selling game. Hogwarts Legacy beat out Modern Warfare 3 last year, which of course Modern Warfare 3 had a pretty rough launch and pretty terrible reputation, so that probably didn't help. However, I did a little bit more digging here. Technically, Call of Duty remained the best-selling franchise in 2023 due to the release of both MW2 and MW3. That kind of boosted the numbers and kept COD as the best franchise. But in terms of number one best-selling game, Hogwarts Legacy did beat out Call of Duty last year. So a little bit of a dip, I would say, going into 2024 and 2023. And, I think Call of Duty's definitely trying to bounce back from that. People were not happy with MW3 at launch. Like I said, very rocky launch. Many calling it essentially DLC, and longtime fans being very disappointed with I think it was roughly 3-hour campaign. I mean, I'll never forget, we had who was it? Christopher Judge at the Game Awards that year, or last year, making fun of it, and he did a little dig at it at the Game Awards, which, I'm sure the people that made that game weren't thrilled about, but it was pretty funny at the time. But yeah, roughly 3-hour campaign. People were not happy, and even the structure of that campaign was not your traditional Call of Duty. Big set pieces, big moments, big levels. It very much seemed to be the majority of it take place on Warzone maps and sort of let you do more open-ended stuff, which was pitched in the sales thing as being like, well, Call of Duty's maybe making a shift more towards a Far Cry where you can go about it your own way, when in reality it was really just easier to make it that way because you could incorporate kill streaks that already were in the game, incorporate locations that were already in the game with Warzone maps, and sort of churn it out as fast as possible to get MW3 out. That's not to mention the story direction things took, which I'll be honest, I kind of fell off the Call of Duty story with the new remake. I love the first remake. Well, I guess it's the second remake because they remade 4, but the 2019 one, that original one that came out, I absolutely love that game. My friends and I played a ton of it. It was a special moment. It was also right around COVID lockdown, so that kind of helped, but I loved that game quite a bit. And there were, things that happened in that game, and I can spoil it. It's been like 4 years. So Alex is like one of your main characters. He gets blown up in that campaign. He sacrifices himself for some reason. I don't remember why. He blows up, right? But then they bring him back in a season of Warzone. And it like totally deflates any kind of like, I don't know, dramatic like gravitas they want to have with the story if they're just going to do this stuff in Warzone, if the story quote unquote will continue in Warzone. But like, it's not the same. And when they started doing stuff like that, that was kind of when I fell off of, okay, what is this narrative here? I bought Modern Warfare 2 just for the gameplay, because that system, that engine that those remakes run on is still very fun to play in. And then the story in that game, I really wasn't paying attention, if I'll be honest. I know there were some levels in that mission, or in that game rather, that I really did not enjoy. There were some that were better than others, but I think overall MW2 was a step back from the first game. And then I never even played Modern Warfare 3, I'll be honest. I saw it was critically panned. I wasn't going to shell out that kind of money for it. And I just never played it because it was so terribly reviewed, and it seemed like it was really the sort of epitome of this modern Call of Duty era, trying to get as much money out of people as possible. And I just wasn't really there for it. So with all that being said, I mean, Warzone continues to dominate in the multiplayer market. It's raking in millions of dollars for Activision, which is now also Xbox, so it's a moneymaker there. My question sort of is here, with Xbox having so many projects fall through, studio closures, PlayStation outselling them in consoles, Xbox is not in a great spot, so will Call of Duty be the one to dig them out? I think if anything, it reflects the direction Xbox is kind of going in the future. I mean, even in the IGN report, they said a major shakeup of the video game sales strategy, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. They are kind of moving away from that traditional console release cycle of, whatever they were going to call it, the Xbox Series X 2.0. I don't know. The naming conventions with Xbox kind of got out of hand. But they're moving away from that console cycle, and it seems like they're going more into being a digital library of games that you can hypothetically play anywhere, whether that be through the xCloud or an app on your TV, or with the sort of slimmed down Series S variant that doesn't have a disk drive but is very small and very portable and very impressive, honestly, with what it can do. So that is maybe where they're more shifting towards. And so if they want to grow that online catalog with Games Pass and with other things, well, really just Games Pass because they did away with Games with Gold. Imagine if Call of Duty was in that ecosystem. It would be a huge get for them. And not just, Black Ops 6, I have here later in the notes, but I'll skip to it now. Imagine a world where we get all of those Call of Duty games, every single one, on Games Pass. I mean, that'd be a pretty big deal. Call of Duty is one of those franchises that seemingly never goes on sale. But it's always there. I see it on sale all the time on the Xbox store. And if they come out and they say, every Call of Duty ever available on Games Pass right now, especially, and I don't even know if they'd be able to do this, if they could do it where the multiplayer servers for all those games are up too. I think that'd be a pretty big deal. Now, I know servers are up now I'll jump into Black Ops 2 and stuff occasionally, But those games are so riddled with hackers. But I think if Microsoft comes in and streamlines it and says, hey, we're kicking... I mean, there's cheaters in Warzone now, so maybe there's no way to prevent cheating. But if they come out and they say, hey, these games are available right now, you can go download them. Black Ops 6 comes out in, November? And, but now you can go play all those old Call of Duty games. I think, that would be a pretty big get for them. But back to the impact on Call of Duty sales. We've talked about before on this show how Games Pass is pretty notorious for hurting initial sales of games. And with Call of Duty retailing at $70 nowadays, with most games retailing that high, is Xbox going to shoot itself in the foot, right? By hurting Activision sales numbers, therefore hurting Xbox sales numbers by putting this thing out on Games Pass. I think the risk reward here that they're going for is hoping that by putting this Call of Duty out on Games Pass, you bump up those Games Pass subscriber numbers, and those people stay subscribed, which becomes a monthly payment, which would theoretically net you more revenue than a one-time $70 purchase. Is that what's going to happen? I don't know. I could see it boosting subs in the short term, but I don't think that is going to lead to sustainable growth and consistent growth. I think you're going to see a big surge of it if you do see a surge, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a price hike to go with this of Xbox Games Pass. And then if you get those old COD games on there, you're going to see a big boost. But again, I don't think there's going to be anything long-term in terms of the growth of Games Pass. That is, of course, unless Black Ops 6 comes out and blows everybody out of the water. Personally, I've been pretty disappointed with most Call of Duty games, except for that 2019 Modern Warfare. I've been pretty disappointed with them. I didn't really like Cold War. I know that was sort of like a sleeper hit that people liked because we were so deep in the Modern Warfare craze that to get Cold War, I don't think it was talked about as much. They really just haven't been grabbing me like they used to. And I think if Black Ops 6 comes out, now that it's on Games Pass, I'm definitely in, because I probably wasn't going to buy it before. Because like I said, I skipped MW3. I did end up picking up Modern Warfare 2. But I've been ebbing and flowing on Call of Duty. But I'm definitely going to give it a shot, right? And I hope it's good. But if it is I'm talking next level good, like the way people talk about Black Ops 1 and 2 and those campaigns and how they're must-play campaigns if you're a first-person shooter fan, then that's going to be a different story. That's going to get way more people coming into Games Pass, and it could be a game changer for Microsoft. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but that'd be great to see. It'd be great for Call of Duty as a franchise. It'd be great for Microsoft, and it'd be great for all the people involved. I was able to find some data here on Games Pass subscribers because until recently, this is data from February, but before February, we really didn't have any concrete numbers on what the kind of growth that Games Pass was dealing with looked like. But this is February 2024. They said they hit 34 million subs. Now, their targeted goal way back when was 100 million subs by 2030, and that is seeming less likely every year. But I mean, you're kind of a third of the way there in both time and subs, so maybe. But I'm pretty sure Xbox sort of dollied back those estimates once they saw that subscribers were kind of plateauing for a while there. I am curious to see if we will get numbers maybe at this presentation to go with the announcement of Black Ops 6 coming to Games Pass, if we'll get more numbers. If we'll get a price increase, I am worried about that, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is really where Xbox is going, if we're not going to get another quote-unquote new Xbox console, and if they're going to just double down on this Games Pass stuff. I would not be surprised if there's a price increase. But, at the end of the day, I'm curious what it will do for the COD franchise and for Games Pass. But I hope the game is good. I want to enjoy another Black Ops game. I really liked 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And, the campaign for Cold War wasn't that bad. It just, by that point, it wasn't what I was looking for. But I am going in optimistic with this Black Ops 6. And, I hope at least the campaign is quality, and I hope the multiplayer is fun. As for Warzone, Warzone is what it is. I really was into Warzone when it first came out with that 2019 Modern Warfare. My friends and we played a ridiculous amount of it during lockdown. But, now it's just... I find it to be pretty pay to win. I find it to be very meta chasing, with people just picking the best guns with the best attachments and then just destroying you. It's the same thing I complain about with all multiplayer games on this show. People are just going to be better than you and dominate you. Then why am I going to waste my time playing your game? And Warzone, I think, has gotten a lot worse with that over time as they add more guns. Like the shift from Warzone 1 to 2, where, you know, the guns, the recoil and the way the guns felt is so much different and so much easier to control that, you know, it's just not what it used to be. And I think all the added mechanics, it's what you see in a lot of these, you know, free-to-play live service games that go on for so long. They just become so bloated, and it's difficult to just have that stripped-down classic fun you used to have before. Again, I sound like an old man, but hey, that's just my opinion. So yeah, I don't know how this is going to work with Warzone, but I'm sure it will be some sort of major update, and I'm assuming Warzone will stay free. I don't see why it wouldn't. They're making money hand over fist with it. Why would you charge for that? And now you'll be able to get that whole package all on Xbox. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see what this presentation looks like whenever that drops. I will probably cover it on this show, depending on the timing of it. I might be a little late to it, but, you know, check it out whenever that does drop, I will most likely get to it. But yeah, that's all I got to say about COD coming to Games Pass. Let me know what you think. Are you a Games Pass subscriber? Do you play every Call of Duty when it comes out? How do you feel about this sort of exclusivity here with Xbox Games Pass? But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be covering the PlayStation Showcase. You're listening to No Credits Rolled. We're going to talk a little bit about the latest PlayStation State of Play. I almost said Showcase. They're two different things. Typically, I think these State of Plays are usually supposed to be a little bit lower key, not necessarily the big crazy reveals that we come to expect from Sony. They sort of save those for the showcases. That being said, it's hard to go into any kind of developer or studio, you know, presentation without shooting for the moon, right? Without wanting that one release you've been wanting for years, or that one hype announcement that you don't see coming that really takes you off guard. And I'm guilty of that. Every time I watch one of these, I'm waiting for that hype reveal. But honestly, this State of Play was pretty low key. Not a whole lot of crazy things. And I'm really just going to cover the stuff that interested me. Obviously, if you want to see the whole thing, you can go check it out yourself. There were some things, the majority of the thing I'm not going to cover, honestly, because it really doesn't appeal to me, and I really don't find much of it interesting to talk about. But, you know, it's still worth your time if you do want to check out the whole thing. So the first thing I want to cover here, by the way, just to preface, everything I'm going to be quoting here is from Taylor Lyles at IGN. They did a very good breakdown of everything that was announced, so you can go read that article if you want the full breakdown as well. First thing I want to cover here is a game called Concord from Firewalk Studios, and this is from Taylor Lyles at IGN. Quote, starting the May 2024 State of Play, Sony unveiled a new gameplay trailer for Firewalk Studios' upcoming 5v5 multiplayer shooter Concord. The new trailer showed a pre-rendered cutscene. We love those pre-rendered cutscenes, can't get enough of those. Showcasing a ragtag group of guns for hire. After the extended cutscene, Firewalk Studios provided a first and detailed look at Concord's gameplay. Blah, 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 various characters, various styles. It's a 5v5 hero shooter, everybody. We know what those look like. It's going to be released on PC and PS5 August 23rd, and there will be a beta in July. Look, I mean, this is another hero shooter. I don't know why they're making this game at this time. I feel like this game kind of already looks dead in the water, and it hasn't even had a beta yet or hasn't even come out yet. It looks very generic. You know, a lot of times when I talk with my friends about these reveals, I talk about the kind of games that you would see in a movie that like kids are playing in the background that isn't a real game because they couldn't get the license to something, so they just made up a fake game. This game kind of looks like that. That being said, if I can get in on the beta, I will definitely check it out. You know, I like hero shooters, even if they're generic looking. I like to try new games like this. So, you know, maybe I'll check it out if given the chance. When it comes out, I don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, August 2023, that's probably going to be right before Call of Duty, assuming if Call of Duty drops in November or September, it usually drops in the fall. Like, I don't know where this game is going to fit in people's, like, shooter ecosystem. You know, I hope it does well for the studio. I know I don't know what Firewalk Studios has done before. I personally haven't heard of them, but you know, if this is like their big moment in the sun to sort of shine, I hope it goes well for them. But I don't know what is going to make this game stand out and what is going to draw people's eyes to this. Unfortunately, you know, in a world where a lot of games are either established like a Warzone or they're using big IPs to get people in. You know, we're going to talk about multiverses later in the show, but people play that game just because of the IPs they know. It's tough to do something wholly unique and still get people involved. I mean, there have been countless examples of these free-to-play. I don't know if this game's free-to-play. I could not figure that out. But the point is, like, these wholly unique ideas that come out that are 5v5 hero shooters or something like that don't really have the sauce to make it stand out and end up failing. And, you know, we're going to see what happens here with Concord. But like I said, I hope the best for the studio and the devs and all that. I wanted to highlight it because I will probably check it out if I can, just because I do like these types of games. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of hero shooters, this was probably my most hype announcement, even though it's like kind of nothing. But Marvel Rivals is coming to PS5. A closed beta is set for July. So I don't know if I've talked about it on this show yet, because I turn on the microphone and black out for 45 minutes, but if you haven't seen it, Marvel Rivals is the superhero team-focused PvP shooter. These are quotes from Lyles over at IGN again. Featuring Marvel Comics superheroes, appeared at the State of Play today. In addition to PC and Mac, the team shooter was confirmed to receive a PS5 version when the game eventually releases. Unfortunately, the game still doesn't have a release date, but we got more gameplay. And there was recently, this is now Sam talking. There was an alpha recently, so there's lots of gameplay out there you can go check out if you want, showcasing, you know, different maps, all the different heroes. It was a pretty fleshed out build of the game on PC. One final quote here from Lyles over at IGN. Additionally, developed NetEase Games announced that a closed beta test will be held sometime in July, with more details set to be provided as the test month draws near. You can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to try to get in on that. Because I am very excited for this game. I have wanted a game like this for a long time. I'm a diehard Overwatch fan, less so now since they've kind of ran that game into the ground, but especially when Overwatch initially came out, I used to say it was my favorite game of all time. So to get that with the Marvel universe, with the Marvel characters, and from what I've seen in the alpha, they are unabashedly just stealing from Overwatch in terms of gameplay mechanics. There are characters in Rivals that function just like characters in Overwatch. There are maps in Rivals that look just like Overwatch maps. It is borderline like legally actionable, but we'll see. I think a reason they're doing that, they're being so similar, is that so people know the language when they start this game. Because, you know, if you're jumping into one of these games for the first time, it's tough to know what character to start playing as, because, you know, you're presented this roster and you're like, okay, well, I don't know. These people all have unique abilities. I don't know what anybody does. But if you know the language of Overwatch, which is a popular now free-to-play game as well, you can jump in and say, okay, well, Hulk kind of plays like D.Va. I like D.Va, so I'll play the Hulk. There is a language there that is nice, assuming they don't get sued. But, you know, I'm very excited for this game. I knew it was coming to PC, and I was kind of bummed, but I assumed we were going to get a console release at some point, and I love that we got this announcement this early and this soon. Beta test in July, says here. More details set to be provided as the test month draws near. I mean, it's almost June. It might be June by the time this airs. So hopefully we get some more information on that soon. You know, I'm super excited for that. And I will do whatever I have to get in that beta if I can. You know, if I gotta, you know, maybe they're gonna make me buy the Founders Bundle, the Collector's Edition. You know, maybe I'll do it. We'll see. Because I am very excited about this game. And I hope it doesn't suck. You know, that would be bad. That would not be a good time if I play this game and it sucks. But we'll see. There's a lot of we'll see on this section of the show because it is a state of play. It is announcements. It is reveals. It is trailers. So it's a lot of speculation on where are we actually going to get once we get these games in our hands. Next up, Capcom shared a new look at the new Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter Wilds. I believe we got a title reveal of this maybe in Summer Games Fest last year. There was some presentation where they did the title reveal. But we got more gameplay here. New trailer. It looks really good. Like graphically, it looks like maybe a departure from Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise. I know with Rise they tried to do a little bit of a pared down graphically intensive game because of where that launched initially. But it looks like they're, you know, really shooting for the moon here with Monster Hunter Wilds. It looks like a lot of fun. I really like Monster Hunter is one of those games that I really would like to get into and really like make it soak up all my time. But every time I try to play one of these games, you know, I played a decent amount of World and I played a little bit of Rise. it's like I always feel like I'm late to the party with these games. I always feel like I get in there late, and my friends and I played World a little bit, but I know this game is enhanced by playing with friends, and it's tough to sort of stick with a group playing these games because, first of all, at least in World, the party up system was like really obtuse and not simple at all. I think it was last week, about how when it comes to these multiplayer games, for me, it's important to have that ease of access of just being able to squad up with your friends. And Monster Hunter World is not one of those games. It is a pain. And, that sort of was a turnoff for us because we just want to boot up the game, squad up, and start playing. We don't want to, maybe we're drowning in all these fantastic games that we're privileged saying this, but I feel like if you're going to make a multiplayer game, you should make it easy to be able to play multiplayer. I don't know. Anyway, I hope this game is, decent. It looks great. I will check it out eventually. I don't know if I'll be picking this one up on release, but I will check it out if it comes to some kind of free service maybe, or if I can pick it up on sale. We'll definitely try to check it out. I think this is the last announcement we have here, and this was probably my second. This is probably the one I should be most hyped for, but I'm not, just because I have such an interest in Marvel Rivals. But last announcement here is Team Asobi unveils new Astrobot game coming this September. Now, if you haven't played the other Astrobot games, there is the second Astrobot game, I think, the one that isn't VR. It is incredible, and I feel like it's kind of slept on. I feel like a lot of people didn't play that game because of how it released and where it released. But the Astrobot games are fantastic. I mean, it's like Sony's version of a Mario game, and I feel like it doesn't get the sort of acclaim and recognition that they deserve. The games are fantastic. Highly recommend you go play them if you like those kind of 3D platformers. And now we're getting a new one, and I think that's fantastic news. And it's coming out on September the 6th, so not that far away. It's just titled Astrobot, apparently. This is, again, from Taylor Lyles over at IGN. Team Asobi's next project debuted an adorable gameplay trailer and explained in a PS blog post that players will explore over 80 levels. That is a lot of levels. As they look for Astro's missing crew. And one of the charming aspects of this game is because it's a Sony exclusive, you get a lot of Sony Easter eggs. You get all kinds of Sony references. So we had references to Uncharted, to Parappa the Rapper, God of War. It's just really charming, and it's really cool. And if you like Sony and you're going to pick up on these references, it's a lot of fun. On top of it being a fantastic platformer, and the way they incorporate the haptic feedback and the functionality of the DualSense into the controller. It's a little gimmicky, but it's like the best version of gimmicky where, the way they do the haptics, especially in the triggers and stuff for the second game that came out, is really, really impressive. And it really showcases what that DualSense controller is capable of that not a whole lot of games nowadays are utilizing, I think, to its fullest extent. So yeah, new Astrobot game coming out in September. Definitely going to check that one out. I highly recommend you go play the other ones if you can get your hands on them. If you're on PlayStation, they're a ton of fun, and they don't really take that long to beat either. I think you can beat them in, maybe under 10 hours. And, Astrobot, he's an adorable little guy. He's a great mascot too. I know we're kind of past the age of mascots for franchises and companies, but he's a great mascot. Shout out Astrobot. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I got for the May 2024 Sony State of Play. Let me know what you think. Did you check out the State of Play? Are there any big announcements you were looking forward to? Maybe some of the stuff I didn't cover here on the show. Did anything catch your eye? Or were you maybe let down? Did you, like myself, set your expectations absurdly high and maybe not have them fulfilled? Let me know. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time for the review portion of the show. You're listening to No Credits Rolled. All right, and we're back on No Credits Rolled. Now, for the review portion of the show, I did tease it. We are going to do it. It's the Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door review. This is, of course, the remake of the 2004 GameCube classic. This is a fun little blurb I got when I was doing my research from the Super Mario Wiki. So this is a quote from that. The title features visually enhanced and updated graphics, along with new gameplay features. However, it remains faithful to the style of the original game. The characters still use their designs from the original release, and this is the best part. In parentheses, notably, Princess Peach keeps her pre-Mario Party 4 dress design, rather than the updated designs used in the following Paper Mario games. So, I mean, someone's really locking down here, getting these designs accurate. I didn't even know the landmark change in Princess Peach's dress in a pre-Mario Party 4 world. I mean, anyway, yeah. So this is my first Mario RPG, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's pretty fun. I love the design. I think the thing I love most about this game is that art style, that paper art style. Something about that paper aesthetic, it's very appealing to me. And I honestly, guys, this might be my favorite Mario design. Something about the way he looks with his dead little eyes and that 2D sort of 3D flat Stanley look he's got going on. I absolutely love it. There's something simplistic about it that I think really shines. And it's not just Mario. I mean, everybody in this game, you see it in Princess Peach, you see it in Bowser, sort of. I just love the designs in this game. I think that paper look is really appealing to me. And I'm glad I got to experience this game sort of up-res for 2024, 20 years later. I'm glad that a whole new audience like myself is getting to experience this classic game. And the game is a classic, and you can see why just the second you boot it up. You know, going back to that design aspect of it, there's moments where when the characters are standing still or moving, you can like see, you know, like when you have a sticker and the back of the sticker is white, but the front of it is the design of the sticker. So it's kind of like that in the game where you can see the back of like the edges sort of where the paperness of him is. It's hard to describe. I'll have gameplay footage in the video version. You can check it out. But it's awesome. You know, it's a really unique design. I know that they did a couple of these games, and I'm sure people are like screaming at their listing device saying, hey, you know, this paper style's been around for forever. Where have you been? Well, I'm just getting to it now, and I think it looks great. And it also incorporates it into the gameplay design, the world design of, you know, staircases sort of folding over. Mario can transform into a variety of paper things to navigate the world. All that stuff is great, and I think it's really clever, especially when you put it into an RPG, exploring the world, gaining new traversal abilities, things like that. The game looks very crisp, and I think it makes that paper cardboard aspect look even better. Now, it is 30 frames a second, and I know I'm the first one to complain about frame rates here, but honestly, like, I really didn't even notice. I didn't notice until I heard someone mention it on a different show. And, you know, when it comes to Switch games, it's like, it doesn't need to be 120 frames. I would love it if it was. I would love if games like Zelda and Pokemon played at that high frame rate. But especially with this game, I think something about the art style, you really don't notice the 30 frames. It's very smooth, and the combat, which I'll get to in a second, there's a timing mechanic where you have to do certain inputs to, you know, enhance your attack or do a better block. And the frame rate does not impact the timing of that. It's not that hard to do, which is good to see because, you know, if you told me it was 30 frames going in, I would, you know, probably want to give it like a ding for that. But I couldn't really tell. Is that because the Switch is old? Maybe. But who knows? Now, the actual RPG mechanics are pretty fun. Like I just said, it involves hitting certain button prompts during turn-based combat. I think this is maybe my preferred method of combat in RPG. One of the South Park games did it too. And those South Park games were sort of my first introduction to because they were paying homage to all these classic RPGs, and they all had different combat styles. And one of them, I can't remember which one. One of them had this like turn-based thing where you would do active time-based things in the combat. And I really do enjoy that. I think it combines the aspects of turn-based, which I like because there's not a whole lot of like stress, honestly, but it also gives you that engagement with when you do an attack, hit this button. It keeps you in the loop of the game because if, you know, just straight turn-based can get a little bit boring, I think, in my opinion. So to add that extra element, that really can make or break a fight. You know, if you time a guard right and you take 0 damage when Mario's on 1 HP, you're going to be able to keep going when you otherwise would have lost. And I think it's pretty cool. There's other elements that are neat to it too, where you're using the left stick and pulling back, or you're using different inputs that I just think it's really unique, and I think it really helps you stay engaged in the combat. One thing that I want to mention is this game really has an edge to it that I was just not expecting. You can tell it was from that GameCube era of Mario where he was a little angrier and like the property in general was a little bit edgier. The first thing that comes to mind for me is like Super Mario Strikers, where like Mario would like kick somebody in the head and hit him into electrical fences. So you're getting a little bit of that Mario here, where he's not necessarily as polished and as much of like a friendly neighborhood mascot as you would think. And the world is very like, there's a humor to the whole world too that I think is interesting. And I like that they kept all that stuff in the original game. Like I said in the notes here, Mario's a lot nicer nowadays, but it's funny to see the sense of humor Thousand Year Door has. I mean, there have been like comedy bits and jokes in the game that have made me laugh out loud, which is nice. There was one in particular that's fairly early in the game where you have a Koopa, the turtle guys. He's one of your companions, and he's looking for his dad. And you find a Dry Bones, which are the skeleton Koopas, and he's like, "Dad, no!" And he finds a note on him that like is talking about, my last wishes to my son, blah 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 blah. But then it says like a different name at the end, like it's not your companion's name. And then he's like, "Oh, I guess it wasn't my dad." And I don't know, that was really funny to me, and I didn't expect that. It was like really dire for a second. I was like, "Oh my god, did this guy just find his dead father like in a Mario game?" It seemed like a bit much, but then of course they turned it into a joke. That got me. The music is on point, endless catchy battle and traveling themes, the kind of stuff you would expect from these classic RPGs. And a fun detail that I'm sure fans of the original will enjoy, you can equip a badge, which is like sort of your gear, and it sets all the music and sound effects to the sounds from the original game. So if you want that old GameCube sort of vibe, you can equip that, which I think is a nice touch, especially for fans of the original that are now playing the remake. But yeah, I'm eager to play this game. I was hypothetically thinking about getting through way more of it for this review than I wanted to, and then what I ended up doing. It's going to take me a lot longer than I thought, but that's the benefit of hosting a show called No Credits Rolled. You don't have to finish these games to talk about them. But yeah, I'm eager to keep playing. Like I said, it's going to be a lot longer and deeper and lengthier than I was expecting, but I think it's going to be really fun. And the one takeaway that I want to leave you with here is that it makes you want to play other Mario RPGs. I know they just did a Mario RPG remake that I want to check out now. I had never played a Mario RPG before. I only know Mario as the platforming guy or the Smash Brothers guy or the kart racing guy or the soccer player guy or the golf guy or the baseball guy. Never as an RPG guy. So this was a nice change of pace, nice change of pace for my relationship with the old Italian plumber there. But I want to definitely check out these other games and see what they're like in comparison to this one. And I hope we get more remakes too, because I think Nintendo's handling these remakes of these classic games pretty well. And I think they got another home run with this one. All right, and the other game I want to talk about today is MultiVersus. That's right, MultiVersus is back, baby. Developed by Player First Games and published by Warner Brothers. It's the Warner Brothers Cinematic Universe. That's right, 2 weeks back-to-back where we're talking about cinematic crossover universe games. This time it's a free-to-play online fighter. Last week we talked about X-Defiant, which is a free-to-play online shooter. However, this game combines the world of Warner Brothers. So you've got, Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, not the actual dog, but other characters from Scooby-Doo, like Velma and Shaggy. DC characters, you got Batman and Superman. The Gremlins are there. The Iron Giant's there. It's a whole lot of different characters that you might not expect to see in any property, but they're in this game. And that was sort of one of the initial appeals for me when this game was back in beta a while ago. I played a ton of it, and I love these crossovers. Like even if there's like no substance to them, just something about seeing Batman talk to Bugs Bunny. I love it. And this is what that game is. It is a fighting game, of course. It's in the vein of something like a Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl or a Smash Brothers, if you're curious what kind of game you're getting into. Now, this is still a great game, but it's definitely still got some polishing that needs to be done. The weird thing is, it was in beta for forever, then they took it offline for what felt like a year, if not more maybe. I didn't check the dates, but it felt like a year. It was a long time. And now it's back in its official release, but they've removed some elements that were in the original beta that aren't in the full release now, which really kind of baffle me. I have two of them here because they're the two that stand out the most. But you can't, to my knowledge, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, the ability to change characters in between rematches is just no longer there. You're locked in whatever characters you pick from the beginning, which is like, I'm just surprised by that. I would like to change characters. It also used to be, I think it used to be, best 2 out of 3, and then you couldn't rematch anymore. Now you can just rematch forever. But unfortunately, because you can rematch forever, but can't change your character, it's like, well, eventually I'm going to get tired of playing this character anyway, maybe, because I'm not trying to sweat that much in these games yet. Learn all the combos for this one character. I like to jump around, play different characters. But you can't in between rematches, at least not yet. They'll probably patch it. Speaking of after match things, the other thing I have down here is there's like no stats after a match. Like You don't know who got the most KOs or who anybody got KOs or what kind of damage you did. Like none of that stuff is there, which is really strange. And again, they can patch it, or maybe there's just something I'm missing. But these things were in the original beta and are just no longer in the full release of the game. And there's stuff that is kind of weird to not have, especially in a fighting game that's online like this. Some other things. The game moved to Unreal Engine 5, and that was kind of why it took so long to come back out. But you can see that change to UE5 with the fluidity of the game. I think the characters move a lot smoother, and like it's hard to describe because I don't know like the technical terms of game animation. But I think the characters look a lot smoother, especially when they're jumping or like mantling over things. That's where I first noticed it. Unfortunately, there are still server issues that plagued the original beta that are still here. So it causes the game to lag frequently, which in a fighting game is not, that's like the kiss of death, which is, I think, a lot of why people dropped off initially in that beta. And of course, I've had a handful of just either network crashes, which were in the middle of a fight, you just get kicked back to the main menu. And I've even had a handful of hard crashes where the game completely freezes and the game crashes and I have to restart the whole thing. So, you know, the game was out of commission, you know, offline for so long in development, and it's still having these issues coming out. And I wonder what the problem is, honestly. Especially when it comes to that server lag. People are going to stop playing a fighting game. You know, people want rollback netcode in their fighting games, let alone servers that function at just the most basic level. And I think that probably needs to be priority number one. You know, I complained about the character switching and the UI stuff with the stats after a match, but I think you need to lock those servers down, and you need to do it quick because, you know, you're going to get that initial boost of people wanting to come back and hop into this game that they maybe liked initially and is now back for them to play, like myself. But if the game becomes, you know, borderline unplayable with server lag in every match, you're going to kill that fan base just as quickly as you did before. So that's definitely an issue. But hopefully they fix it. You know, I have high hopes. They clearly want this to be... There's a lot of effort put into this game. I'll put it that way. They care about these characters, and the movesets for each character feel unique and distinct to them, and they fit the character. You know, it's going to sound really dumb, but like if you know the lore of Bugs Bunny, right? He's got like attacks where he like summons a safe or like goes in the ground and then comes back up. Things like that. You know, you can tell they did their homework on these characters when they were creating them for this fighting game. And that's the kind of stuff I love. I love being, you know, Shazam or Superman, and you feel the kind of power behind them. Or you can be a faster character like, well, not necessarily faster, but like Jake the dog from Adventure Time. He's kind of like Kirby in terms of he can like change shape and stuff like that. I don't know. I think all the characters are pretty fun to play, and it's fun to see these characters, this Warner Brothers universe, put into a game. I mean, we've seen like in Injustice, we've seen Batman and Superman and Black Adam and Wonder Woman, but you haven't seen like the Gremlins, right? Or like, you know, like I don't know, the Gremlins is like the weirdest one that comes to mind, but I'm sure there's others. I know they just introduced Jason Voorhees, and he's like really like built for some reason. He's like huge. Agent Smith is coming to the game from The Matrix, so I don't know. I love that stuff, and every time they drop a character, I'm probably going to come back, just like I did in the beta when they dropped characters, just to check them out. So one other big thing with this re-release of the game, they added a single-player mode. I believe they're called Rifts. It's sort of like a combination of towers from Mortal Kombat, but it's a lot closer to single-player stuff in games like Smash Brothers, where you're doing fights, but then there's also mini-games in between some of the fights. And I gotta say, well, you know what? Let's start with the positive. It's a nice addition, right? It's always good to have some kind of PvE thing in your online game, in my opinion, because if you're getting tired of getting stomped by people that are just way better than you at the game, you can boot up the PvE stuff and fight bots. And there are different difficulty levels to the bots, so you don't feel like you're just sort of playing on easy mode, right? You can set it to higher difficulties and train like that, just like you would train in any other fighting game. And you can still gain rewards that way as well. The big negative here is the minigames. The minigames are honestly terrible. They're brain dead simple, and I really think they need to be either reworked entirely, or I wouldn't be upset if they just removed them. I mean, they're like, you know, here an example of one is you're on like a cannon, and these balloons are rising up in front of you, and you just move your cursor and shoot the balloons with the cannon. It's like a game you would, like a plug and play game you get from the drugstore. There's one where you're in a tank and there's there's ships or like robots or whatever coming from the left or right of the screen, and you have to turn your tank and move your little the barrel of the tank and shoot them. But it's like a 3-year-old could do these. It's insane. Maybe I'm missing something here, but like it really feels like really bad. And especially when you just want to do fights and you're locked in doing some of these mini games before you can progress to the next stage of the tower. You know, my friend and I, Joe and I were playing yesterday or the other day, I forget when, and we found that we could just jump off the map and instantly lose, but it would allow us to progress to the next fight. So we just started doing that because we didn't want to do these mini games. And then like we did the one rift that ended with a Joker fight. And the majority of the Joker fight was the mini games all in one. Like you didn't really fight the Joker. He flew around in the balloon and you used like strategies from the other mini games to defeat him. And that was the big final boss. And it was like baffling. It honestly blew my mind that was what they did for the big final fight there. So yeah, mini games are terrible. And I really think, I'll just say it. They should just take them out. No one needs that, right? They're fun in Smash Brothers because Smash Brothers is an older franchise. And it's sort of nostalgic to do those like I don't even remember what they are, but like when you're running away from the hand guy and things like that, or like the obstacle courses and that there's an element of like nostalgia there. I think if you went from Melee to Brawl to whatever, but there's like no reason to have it in Multiverses. I think it brings the gameplay to a grinding halt, and they're like brain dead easy. There's like no good like feedback even for doing them. It's just terrible. Like it really, I don't know why I've got such a bone to pick with it, but it really bothers me. But anyway, I do think you should go check out Multiverses, at least for a couple matches. It's free to play, and I'm sure you can find a character that you either know or like in the Warner Brothers universe. It's the benefit of having the Warner Brothers IP kind of backing this whole thing. There's probably a character that you can find that you'll enjoy. And it's definitely worth trying for a couple matches, even if you do get that server lag. It's not every match, but at the end of the day, the fighting mechanics are still a ton of fun. And it's definitely my kind of game. So I'm definitely going to keep playing it and just praying they fix all the problems and take out those mini games. But that's going to wrap up episode 10 of No Credits Rolled. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, you can always email questions or comments to nocreditsrolled@gmail.com. You can call in and leave us a voicemail at 856-209-0713. That's 856-209-0713, and we might just play it on the air. Make sure to subscribe to No Credits Rolled on Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts, we'll be there for you. And if you're feeling generous, of course, you can always check out the Patreon, where you can subscribe for just $3 a month, and you can recommend what I should play and what I should talk about on the show. But hey, that's all I got. I'll see you next time on No Credits Rolled.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com. Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com. Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.